Before Sitting Bull was the Charger. Today on the Pastimes. Today on the Pastimes, I want to share with you the story of a great Sioux leader. He was called Wana'ata. In English, that translates as the Charger. Wana'ata, born 1795 and died in 1840. He was also called Waneta. He was a war chief of the Cuthead Band of Yanktonai, Dakota, as was his father, Red Thunder. Red Thunder's eldest daughter, Ishta Totowi, Blue Eyes Woman, or Helen Elizabeth Winona. She was born 1781 and died sometime in the early 1800s. Helen Elizabeth was married to the English Indian agent Robert Dixon. Wana'ata, a Ihanktuwana or Yanktonai Sioux, was born in what is now Brown County, South Dakota. He joined his father, Red Thunder, in siding with the British against the United States during the War of 1812. He fought at the siege of Fort Meigs in 1813 and at Sandusky, where he was wounded in the latter battle, receiving 9 life-threatening wounds. It was at Sandusky that he received the name Wana'ata, which means leading the charge, or Waneta, for leading the charge against the Americans. There in battle, Waneta killed 7 men in hand-to-hand combat. During the attack on Sandusky, he was struck by a musket ball and 3 buckshot in the chest. The bearing glanced on his breastbone, passing around under the skin, and came out his back. Already wounded, Wana'ata took 5 more shots, yet he held his ground. In his hair, in later paintings or sketches, Wana'ata wore 9 wooden knives or sometimes 9 feathers to represent his deeds and injuries at Sandusky. After the war, the British rewarded Wana'ata for his loyalty by presenting him with the captain's commission. He subsequently visited England and was taken before King George III. Upon Wana'ata's return from England, he resumed his chieftainship and immediately resumed the Dakotas' age-old feud against the Chippewa near Pembina. He completely annihilated the Chippewa band living there, leaving none alive. During the summer solstice of 1819, Wana'ata celebrated in the annual Sundance. In preparation for the dance, he gave away all his possessions. Whatever vision or sacred call Wana'ata received from the Creator certainly left him a changed man. In the spring of 1820, he led a party of Yanktonai and Sisseton to Fort Snelling, ostensibly to have a friendly visit with Colonel Snelling about the murder of a fellow tribesman. On the march to the fort, Wana'ata flew the Union Jack, and on arrival he had his flag burned. He was seized at the fort's entrance, and the guards found reason to believe that he was there to attack the fort. Wana'ata was placed under arrest, his possessions seized, and he was marched before the colonel. Snelling saw for himself all the badges and medals awarded to the chief and came to the conclusion that Wana'ata must have been there on behalf of the English. Snelling then burned all Wana'ata's trophies before his eyes. Snelling then ordered his men to forcibly naturalize the chief until he was fully convinced of the power of the Americans. So beaten was Wana'ata that his warriors thought him dead at first, and immediately gashed the flesh of their arms in sorrow. Amazingly, the chief's policy ever after was peace towards the whites. Perhaps the chief's vision the previous summer prepared him for this new direction and allegiance to the United States, whom he faithfully served until his last days. In 1823, the first U.S. military campaign was waged against the tribe on the Great Plains against the Arikara Indians, called the War of 1823 or the Arikara War. The Sioux Indians demonstrated their wholehearted commitment to the United States by siding with the Missouri Legion led by Colonel Leavenworth against the Arikara, north of present-day Mobridge, South Dakota, along the Missouri River. Wana'ata was directly responsible for exacting a tribute from the Arikara for not killing them, and took much of their food stock for the coming winter. He set up winter camp on Beaver Creek and took tribute from the Mandan for protecting them from the rest of the Sioux. Wana'atah's chieftainship was strongly supported by extensive family connections and a strong belief that he was guarded by supernatural protection. In his 30s and 40s, Wana'atah took to wearing an officer's uniform, top boots, green spectacles, a saber, and pistols. It was because of Wana'atah's penchant for wearing spectacles that he was later called Ishtamaza, or Iron Eyes. A dominant chief of the Sioux tribe, Wana'atah signed a trade treaty with the Americans on July 25, 1825. On August 17th, the very next month, and 450 miles later, he signed the first Treaty of Prairie du Chien, which fixed the boundaries of Sioux territory. Wana'atah's dominance, charisma, and authority became so great that at least one of his own tribesmen became resentful and jealous of his recognition. In 1826, Wana'atah made a trip to Washington, D.C. in celebration of the peace trade made with the U.S. in treaties the previous year. While there at the Capitol, Wana'atah's likeness was forever preserved by artist Charles Kingbird. In the summer of 1832 at Fort Pierre, George Catlin painted Wana'atah's likeness. Catlin noted that the chief's influence was supreme on the upper Missouri, without rival. Traders on the Missouri characterized Wana'atah as brave, skillful, sagacious, artful, but also grasping and sometimes overbearing. Wana'atah, when he was about 44, he was struck with snow blindness that he never fully recovered from, and he lost his sight altogether when cataracts formed over both his eyes. With the loss of his sight went the loss of his chieftainship. Wana'atah died in 1840 at the mouth of the present-day Beaver Creek in what is now Emmons County, North Dakota. He was struck down by one of his own tribesmen, blind and unable to defend himself. A U.S. Navy ship has been named in honor of Wana'atah, called the USS Wana'atah. For the Pastimes, I'm Dakota.